Welcome to the
Rest,
Eat, Move
podcast by On Target Living.
And he said, Greg, you have got to make a commitment to yourself to live one day at a time. You can't get ahead of yourself. And that was, I got a lot of good advice, but that was one of the real good pieces of advice I had, especially during the real painful times. And the advice Carl gave me, I just had to get to midnight. And if I could get to midnight, I could get to the next day.
Hey, welcome back to another Rest, Eat, Move podcast. And I'm really excited today. We have an incredible guest, and his name's Greg Lemanski. Greg has an incredible story to share. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. So kind of as we begin, I just want to kind of get the listeners to learn a little bit more about you. Tell me a little bit about your story, you know, how you started at State Farm. Kind of just go back in time. Tell them a little bit about you.
All right. Well, I grew up in Farmington, and we grew up on a dirt road before Farmington was a posh suburb. We'd go in our backyard, which was about a mile by 3 miles of woods and creeks. And, you know, would make spears out of broomstick handles and go hunting rabbits. And I had a delightful childhood. I was blessed to have two very good parents who made us work and taught us the integrity. And we went to church every Sunday. I grew up Catholic. We had a very good foundation. And I'd say a lot of kids on our street were like that, but not everybody. Mm-hmm. There were also some tough kids who didn't have good mom and dads, and we had to negotiate being a good person with being a tough person, because you could get taken advantage of.
Sure.
You know, if I was a little kid amongst the bigger kids, you had to know how to be tough. Not it was a gang or anything, but
right.
It was a great environment to grow up with a balance of life. And I just really look fondly on those days. And then I played sports. We were always a sports family, my four siblings and I. I ended up going to college, and I played varsity football and club lacrosse for 4 years at Albion and had a great experience there. That's where I really found the insurance industry to fit my need to serve people, to be my own boss, and to have the potential to earn a lot of money. And then when I interviewed the different insurance companies, State Farm jumped out as the opportunity for me to take. And knowing that I was going to be poor for a few years, I was starting my own business. My best friend and I wanted to go to Europe and backpack Europe for 6 weeks before we started the business journey, and work like crazy with no money. So that was really a very good investment in non-formal education, but we learned so much about the world. And what we're seeing right now in the Ukraine with Russia, I have a little bit of closer knowledge because I was near some of those countries.
So you did that for 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
It was. I would encourage any college graduate to go somewhere in the world and find out about America by being out of America.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Learn about America outside of America.
We're very ethnocentric, right? If you only know what you know, you don't know that.
Right.
You know, other people don't get showers.
We say we know what we know, but everything else is what we don't know, or we don't know that we don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So then came State Farm, March 1st of 1985. I just celebrated my 37th anniversary.
Wow.
And I remember it very well. I started out in a basement with 3 other agents and a manager, and it was a humble beginning. Because I was just a college kid. I only had $3,000 to start my business. And it was just work. And it was good work. I loved it.
Sure.
I was selling things since I was a little kid, whether it was, you know, the raffle tickets for sports or magazines for elementary school contests. I just loved the challenge of selling. And I particularly like the insurance service to sell, because it would help people when they really needed help.
Sure.
And it turned out very well. It's been a real blessing in my career because I have great relationships. We've made a lot of money. We've lived our dreams financially, but also with State Farm, there's great incentive trips to travel, and I've done all of those trips, which has taken us
All over.
all over.
Yeah.
And that's
37 years. Wow.
yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah,
And that just occurred. So
right.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
So along the way, State Farm, how has that changed since 1985 for you? Obviously, you were in a basement, small beginnings to where you are today. I mean, you got a thriving business, got a great team.
We do. Yeah, you can't do anything without a great team, as you know. When you say what changed, Chris, I remember when we first got our brand new computer. I started with nothing but paper and math. I think we must have had a basic calculator at that time, but we had to figure out all the forms, and there were about 8 or 10, steps to the math that we had to do to figure out one auto write, and sometimes it could be double that. And everything was done on paper and pencil, and then we got a computer with a floppy disk, and that would take 5 minutes, but I've seen that whole metamorphosis till today.
Sure, right.
Now the technology is out of control. I can't
Right.
even keep up with it. There's so much of it.
That's why you have a good team.
Right. The handshake and the relationship was much more important then than it is now. People would answer their phone. People would listen to a knock on the door. People were much more civil, I think, to talk business then than we are now because of mass marketing, phone scams today, just an overabundance of marketing and junk mail today. You can see in 37 years how that's changed.
Right.
So it's different today, and if you don't adapt, you die. So
And the relationships you have, that's obviously key.
right, and there are a lot of people who still want relationships, but there are a fair amount of people who would rather do things on their own. They're very self-sufficient. They only need me when it's really expertise time.
Right.
Or their back's against the wall and they have something they don't know how to handle. That's when I have to come in and give them counsel.
Okay.
Some people, they do everything, would recommend and would say. Other people, they just want to listen and they'll make up their own minds. And we always say, well, I'm going to give you advice, like you're my own brother and sister, who I love. But I wouldn't expect my own brother and sister to do everything I say because it's your money. You have to decide what you do.
Right.
Now, what I do need to make sure is when there is a claim that you decided this, not us. Because it's very easy to blame us when something happens and you didn't buy the appropriate coverage. And then you're irritated, and rightfully so, but we don't like that pushback.
Sometimes what we do, like if you can get people to follow, the hardest part is get people to change behavior. But if you can follow somewhat of the protocol, you're going to probably get great results.
Sure.
And that's what you're saying. You're like, hey, this is the plan, but you have to make the ultimate decision if you're the one choosing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about where you are today.
Where I am today is I would go back to the challenge I'm having with a cancer diagnosis in May 16th, actually. I woke up for 3 nights in a row with some real severe stomach pain. And my wife, God bless Brenda, she said on a Saturday, why don't you just go in and get a blood test? And the Friday night, Chris, before that, I was working an 85-pound jackhammer in my backyard on a project. So it wasn't like I was weak or crippled.
You're crushing it.
Yeah.
What year was that? May?
Just last year, 21.
May 21.
Yep, May 21. And so the 3 blood tests at 98.6, the first 2 said, no, you don't have anything big. We'll call you in 24 hours on the last one. And then we were at our cottage, and the last test, they said, you have to come back to Lansing. I said, well, we're up at our cottage. Can't we do something here? I said, no, we think we see either gallstones or a gallbladder. There's something blocking the bile that's coming out. And so I checked in the Sparrow emergency room, and I'm a hospital patient for 2 or 3 days. And what they thought that may have been stones or bile or a blockage, or what they called sludge, it turned out to be a tumor, and that's when the journey changed. The journey changed to have that 10-hour Whipple surgery. Maybe I mentioned that to you already.
Yep.
Pretty intense surgery. Going after a few different organs and
How did you feel? So you got the first blood test, but what was going through your mind when you first got the first blood test?
The blood test was really to appease my wife. The pain was intense those 3 nights. There is no doubt. I thought when I was lying in bed, I said, I've never had cancer, but if I did, this is what it would feel like, because it really burned. But then it was gone, and then I could do work, and I was normal.
Doing
but
the
when you lay
jackhammer.
down
Right.
in that,
Flat position.
vertical position or horizontal position, that's when I guess your bile is really needed. Well, when I got the blood test, I wasn't thinking there was anything serious. The phone call when we were at the cottage, the lady said with some real enthusiasm, "No, I have to get to Lansing. They need to see me." They didn't think it was cancer, but
Right.
they thought definitely it was.
You can't be sitting at the lake.
Right, because if I had a gallbladder eruption or something, it could get real serious with sepsis.
Right. So when you came back to Sparrow, and then you found out, and that you went through that whole thing, kind of catch us up on that. So where we're at, like, okay, so I went through the Whipple. Walk the listeners through kind of what did that entail?
So at Sparrow, they had to do all the diagnostic tests, and that's where they found that it wasn't sludge or stones, that it was a tumor right outside the pancreas on my small intestine, also called the duodenum. And I didn't really know how serious that was, so I was looking up on my phone different things, and that was a mistake because everything in the world came at me in a negative fashion.
Right.
I thought, oh my gosh, this is not a good situation. And I remember clearly one of the young doctors, he came in and he had sweat on his forehead, and he did not really want to tell me what was happening. So there was a couple tests, and finally one of the doctors, after I'm in this kind of state of, I just took a right hook to the chin.
Sure.
And the one doctor came back. Oh, so I was walking around the hospital thinking, okay, so do I have a month to live? Do I have 6 months to live? What's going to be said at my funeral? How are my kids going to grow up? I'm never going to see grandchildren. All the things.
Started whipping through your head.
Yeah, you've got an hour of alone time thinking, have I been a good enough servant? Is my wife going to be okay? I know she's going to be okay financially because of what I do.
Sure.
But all the deepest questions, the sad questions, my parents are still living. I would never want them to have to see their son die. So for an hour, Chris, I was walking around the hospital thinking, there's no out to this, because when it's next to the pancreas, everybody knows pancreatic cancer is very serious. I didn't have pancreatic cancer. So when the doctor came in, he said, okay, there is a potential solution for this, and that's called the Whipple surgery. And he described the Whipple surgery as they would remove the head of the pancreas, 1.5 feet of the small intestine. They'd remove 15% of my stomach. They'd remove the gallbladder, and they removed 2 of my ducts to the stomach, or stomach and something else. And then they have to replumb you all together. So within 2 weeks, I was very fortunate. The day after Memorial Day, I was able to get into the surgeon, and they did the surgery. Everything went well until they nicked my liver. And that could have been a life-altering event where you never wake up from that.
Sure.
But Henry Ford had the liver, what do you call it when the liver transplant team was right there. So they had 3 or 4 of them, and they went right to work and patched me up. It elongated things by about an hour and a half. So I'm out, I'm asleep, so I don't know anything, but I really feel bad for my wife that she had to go through what she thought was going to be 8 hours is now 10.
Sure.
So she's out in the waiting room just probably
What's going on?
wondering and, really worrying.
So from May, beginning of the May, and then you had your surgery at the end of May. So it was a fast timeline.
It was very fast.
And then you're walking around thinking about what's my life going to look like and whatever. So catch us up today, and then I got some questions for you.
Yeah, so today I'm on my 11th.
And it sounds like you had a fantastic team.
They were fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
We searched real hard with doctors. We got a lot of opinions. It came down to U of M and Henry Ford, and Henry Ford just was leaps and ahead of what we wanted, leaps and bounds ahead of.
Yeah, because I remember you telling me that your health professionals were fantastic.
They were, and to this day they are. McLaren, the nurses, they
Hey, you said they were like little angels.
They were angelic, and then they still are. They're very compassionate and very